Did you see that the Benton Harbor story made the front page of the New York Times yesterday? Here's something to add to what we know about the Benton Harbor story. Check this out. This is the emergency manager who has been put in charge of Benton Harbor, Michigan. And he's talking to other people who want to be emergency managers about what it's like to be given absolute power to run a city, what it's like to overrule any and all officials who the people in that city voted for, to have all the power yourself. This was posted online this week by Eclectablog, which has been doing great reporting about Michigan's new emergency power government takeover law. It's a short piece of tape. Just listen. This is amazing.
The fact of the matter is, city manager is now gone. I am the city manager. I replaced the finance director. So I'm the finance director and the city manager. I am the mayor and the commission. And I am equal. You're running the city. You are the mayor. You are the commission. You have taken over from them. So just in case you're wondering why they don't like you too much, you've taken that authority away from them. And they will challenge you every step of the way, and they will try to use the community, get the community against you.
Here's what that community against you thing looked like yesterday in Benton Harbor, which has seen all of its locally elected officials wiped off the map by the overseer you just heard there, bragging over the sheer scope of his unilateral authority. Several hundred people turned out to protest against him and his unilateral powers in Benton Harbor on a rainy day. Benton Harbor's emergency manager, unilateral authority guy, told a local TV station this week in Michigan that the people of Benton Harbor probably love that their local officials have been replaced by him. He said that although he hasn't polled anyone or anything, he bets that the people in Benton Harbor see him as an angel of common sense. Is that true? Does Benton Harbor love their new autocrat instead of their old democracy? Despite this week's protest, is that accurate? Is that true? It does not matter. Remember, they no longer get a say in anything about their town. Protesters in Benton Harbor have also started the process of trying to recall their Republican state representative for his support of the law that let their town be taken over by the state. The Republican governor of Michigan, Rick Snyder, gave a big statewide speech yesterday. He said he wants to abolish the minimum number of hours that kids are in school in Michigan. He also said he wants to give school districts all the autonomy they require. That said, some of the school districts in Michigan, he thinks, don't require any autonomy at all. None. He announced that he is targeting 23 districts for government takeover by state-appointed unilateral executives to override all local decision-making and locally elected officials and dismiss them if they feel like it. 19 of those 23 districts have a majority of kids in them poor enough to qualify for free school lunch. Almost all of the districts are in the metro Detroit area. And every single one of those places has just been told that them having local elections, having locally elected officials, that's a problem. That democracy is in the way of making things more efficient in Michigan. That democracy is not the way we fix problems in America, but that it is a problem. It needs to be sidestepped for efficiency's sake, for our own good. At least in poor towns it does. Joining us now is the mayor of Lansing, Michigan, Virg Bernero. Mr. Bernero ran against Governor Snyder in Michigan's last gubernatorial election. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure, Rachel. As usual, you've done a wonderful job highlighting what's at stake here in terms of our democracy. And in terms of the education, this is education as an entrepreneurial enterprise. We talked about this before, the corporatization, the privatization, the profitization. You know, when we talk about folks that are elected promising to run government as a business, and it sounds good to people sometimes, that's really what's happening. I mean, when you run it as a business, you don't have to worry about mayors and councils and Democratic issues. That's no longer an issue. We're running it like a business, and business at a profit. And the next bastion, the next frontier is our school system. Billions of dollars at stake, billions of dollars being spent, and Wall Street can't wait to sink their fangs into it. They couldn't get a hold of Social Security, but by gosh, they've got a way to get in, and really, even maybe a president and a secretary of education, under the guise of waiting for Superman, they can come in and look like a savior, but dig right into those piles of cash and at the same time help wipe out the public unions that are a part of the public school system.
Well, you said, Mr. Mayor, last time you were here that this emergency powers law was going to be sort of camel's nose under the tent. It was going to start off with a few places that were in trouble, and then it would be radically expanded to take over as much of Michigan as possible, not just a few emergency cases. Governor said last night he's got 23 school districts in the crosshairs right now. Is this how it goes from here on out?
Absolutely, and you were one of the first on it, if not the first, and I commend you for it. Look, what his budget does, he just came out with his education address, and I say, Rachel, you know, it's interesting to listen to what people say, but it's better to look at what they do, and in particular budgets. Budgets are a reflection of our true priorities. His budget calls for cutting per pupil spending by about $500 a head, even though there's a surplus in the school aid fund. He raided that fund to provide tax cuts for business, and so now he's putting cuts on the public school system. He essentially, Rachel, he's starving the public school systems into financial and academic anemia, and then giving them emergency managers. So he's kicking them when they're down, and then saying, by the way, if you're a failing school district, meaning if you have one school that in the district that doesn't meet standards, we'll take it over. And and he's taken the cap off charter schools, and he's invited in the for-profit charter schools. He's inviting them to Michigan, and of course, that's all part of the game. That's part of what's going on here is, again, the corporatization of our school system. There are billions of dollars. Why would Wall Street allow that to just sit there when they can come in, raid, and pillage our public school system? And I'm not convinced that they care about quality education because the charters that we have aren't performing any better than our public school system. We all know there's no silver bullet, but part of what the governor's plan did is it perpetuates the myth of the Superman principal, the Superman teacher who can come in and solve all the problems. We know that's not a reality. My wife is a lifelong educator, God love her, as I do. She does a phenomenal job, but one person can't make a difference. It does take a community. It's a community school model. It's about parenting, and when the parents don't do their job, it takes many others of us to come in and try to fill in the gap. There's no one teacher or one principal. We're setting the public school system up for failure so that they can be privatized, profitized, and corporatized.
When you talk about that privatization, corporatization, essentially setting up public education as another stream of government funding that can be rated for private profit, there is one detail about the emergency manager law that always struck me as something that seemed important, but I didn't quite get why, and that was that these emergency managers with this unilateral authority, they're allowed to take outside sources of income from other private companies, from other entities, while they're getting paid by the state to be unilateral overseers. So conceivably, you can have people running the schools on behalf of the state with unilateral authority who are also getting paid to take over the schools by private companies that could profit from them.
You got it. It's one of the most insidious parts of it. In fact, I understand there may be a movement to try to repeal this law, and I hope it happens. Yeah, this has happened in other cases already. I think that this happened in Detroit. So you don't know really what the influence is that they're under. The guy that you had on there from Benton Harbor, I think he's making from the state about $11,000 a month, far more than what the mayor or council maybe combined were making. And so it's a real boon for him. I can see why he likes it. And for these other folks who maybe are unemployed folks in Michigan who can go get a great gig and have all this authoritarian power and really answer to no one or ride roughshod over the citizens. It's a sad day. Again, sad for democracy, but I hope folks will pay particular attention to what's happening with our school system, because up to this point, it's always been about what's good for kids and how do we improve our school system. I'm afraid we're turning to what can Wall Street take out of Main Street, out of our school system, and I'm not convinced that they care that much about the educational process, because most of the jobs that Wall Street is creating is overseas in Asia anyway. So if they can pull money out of our school system, so much the better for them.
Verge Bernero, the mayor of Lansing, Michigan, thank you so much for joining us again this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Rachel.
Really
Keep up the great work.